A suicide car bomber has killed at least 3 foreign troops in an attack on a convoy near the US Embassy in Kabul, in one of the worst attacks on international forces in the Afghan capital in months. With more on this than the rest of today's top stories, here's Yasmin Khatun.
At least 3 foreign troops have been killed in an attack on a convoy near the US Embassy in Kabul. The Taliban have claimed responsibility for the attack. There has been no immediate word on any Afghan casualties, though several wounded civilians were moved to a nearby hospital for treatment. Afghan Deputy Interior Minister Mohammed Amin has said the bomber had targeted a convoy of vehicles carrying foreign troops. Tensions have been building in Afghanistan since the disputed runoff vote in a presidential election earlier this year. US jets have bombed IS fighters south of Baghdad in the first expansion of the campaign against the group. The US Central Command said the attack was launched after Iraqi forces called for assistance. This is the first time the US had used force with the sole intention of directly supporting Iraqi troops fighting IS. France has also sent fighter jets over Iraq, becoming the first ally to join the US-led air campaign. This comes after foreign ministers and representatives of some 30 countries gathered for a security conference in Paris yesterday to discuss how to fight against Islamic State.
Si l'on veut mener une lutte efficace contre ces terroristes, ce qui prendra du temps, c'est une action de long terme, eh bien, il faut que cette action soit globale.
Syrian special forces have destroyed a bridge over the Euphrates River used by Islamic State to move supplies into eastern Syria. The bridge in Deir el-Zor city was taken from rival groups in July this year. This comes amid continual aerial bombings from regime forces. The Syrian government has been pressing an air campaign against Islamic State in eastern and central Syria, as the United States assembles its coalition against the group. US President Barack Obama has said he will not hesitate to strike Islamic State in Syria, though the Syrian government has said any action taken without its permission will amount to an act of aggression. Western governments have ruled out the idea of cooperating with President Bashar al-Assad.
Still with me in the studio to discuss today's news is Ayman Abouzaid, and we're also joined by Mohammed Amin, chairman of the Conservative Muslim Forum. Thank you. But first, let's see what some people have been saying about the news on Twitter. With the launch of US airstrikes and IS fighters, many are questioning the effectiveness of the new campaign. Brian Whitaker says, bombs can't defeat ideas. Religious freedom is the key to confronting ISIS. And the Cairo Review says the war on ISIS already has a winner, the defence industry. Gentlemen, let's start by asking, is the airstrikes we're now witnessing in Iraq by the United States, France, is it the beginning of a new chapter in the war on terror?
It's a new chapter in creating more terror. Basically, you know, the scale of what's happening with ISIS, we've almost just woken up to a big, massive, organized bloc, very well funded, called ISIS, who the Al-Maliki government have decided to withdraw all its troops in Iraq and leave them to pick up the weaponry and machinery. There's obviously something not right. We're on the urge of more terrorism. I hope it's not going to happen. But when people find that all doors are being thrown in their face and there is no maneuver whatsoever, unfortunately, and that shouldn't be the case, they may revert to something like this. This is going to cause a lot more tension. The intention for this, in my opinion, is to combat political Islam in the Muslim world, which was on the increase, which was spreading, which was, you know, spreading all over North Africa especially, and an alliance being built over the other side with Turkey, especially between Morsi and... this was a threat to the West and they had to do something about it. So two things. all both relating to propaganda. One, we need to make political Islam or Islamic State look horrible in the eyes of Western people and Muslims themselves. So let's show these faces. I'm not saying this ideology wasn't in the Muslim world. It was, but it was an absolute minute percentage. Minute. You know, people who die from car accidents are probably tens and tens of times more dying than people on their hands. This has been politicized, and the idea is to demolish any revolution to come out of the Muslim world. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to live, you know, in freedom and free. You have to be a follower of the West. So,
Mohammed, the suggestion is that ISIS is almost a creation of the West in order to justify this war on terror.
I think that's complete nonsense. Nothing else to say about it. People love conspiracy theories. In the Middle East in particular, they resonate, they go around regularly. I regard it as complete and utter rubbish. There's nothing more to say about it.
Was it the same with Iraq? Something absolutely untangible that the Iraqi president at the time, Saddam Hussein, was accused of? Then nothing? Have they come out to at least apologize?
And
nothing.
Do you think the West is right to begin bombing in Iraq?
I believe that the West is right to bomb ISIS in Iraq with the full support of the Iraqi government.
Okay, let's move on just quickly to this question. I mean, let's turn into Syria. Obama seems to be getting in a bit of a muddle here. He's already said he's going to attack ISIS inside Syria, but he's ruled out any alliance with the Assad. But actually, objectively, by carrying out attacks on ISIS inside Syria, surely he is allying with the Assad government.
When you've got a three-cornered fight, where Assad is fighting, let's call them the moderate rebels, just to give them a name, and is fighting ISIS, and ISIS is fighting the moderate rebels, then if you attack any one of those parties, by definition, that helps the other two parties. That doesn't mean that you've automatically gone into an alliance with any one of them.
Do you think there's a contradiction here?
Yeah, there's definitely a contradiction, because our friend here just said a moment ago that in Iraq it has to be done with the Iraqi government, whereas the whole world witnessed that Maliki was an idiot and he turned against his people and he caused conflict politically and on the ground. Yet you're asking, and the new president is from the very same party with the same political agenda, yet we have to liaise with him. But in Syria you can't liaise with him. So which one is it? They're both dictators, they're both turned against their people, but we liaise with one and don't liaise with the other. So which one is it?
And bombing a bridge, as the Syrian Special Forces just did, I mean, is that going to stop Islamic State in northeast Syria?
I don't think even the Syrian government would say that destroying this bridge by itself is going to stop Islamic State. But when you're fighting a war, the ability of your enemy to move supplies across a river is a material factor. And if you can impair that ability to move supplies by destroying the bridge, then you destroy the bridge. It's a straightforward military question.
I mean, Obama has mustered this international coalition and is now looking for ground troops. I mean, are the Egyptians and the Saudi Arabians going to provide ground troops for who could stand up to ISIS?
Could do. History says it's happened before in Iraq, where the West were at the back and the East were on the front. It's second-class citizenship on the worldwide arena. It's happened before, not just in Iraq but elsewhere as well.
But surely airstrikes alone aren't going to defeat Islamic State. Isn't the logic of this towards actual military involvement in terms of combat troops on the ground by the West and America?
Well, first of all, there is a large and significant Iraqi army, which
so far
has performed appallingly for reasons we could go into if we had more time. But that does not mean to say that they cannot be trained and led to perform much better.
Do you think that that you can defeat ISIS without American intervention on the ground?
Well, first of all, when you give it the right scale, and you don't make a ballooned propaganda about something that doesn't have to be coming from bombs from the sky, and there could be other ways of dealing with it. That's one thing. But secondly, how long are you going to be training the Iraqi government, the Iraqi military, to deal with something like this when they should have been doing that over the last 10 years or so?